Guys, coming back at you. It's the fourth time I try to record this video. My computer keeps dying on me for some reason. I'm going to talk about K.K. Downing's book, Heavy Duty, Days and Nights of Judas Priest. I'm a big Priest fan myself. I saw him twice back in the day, Defenders of the Faith Tour and Turbo. So British Steel had a huge impact on me when it first came out, like 80, 81, 82. Really got me into metal big time. So I was excited to read the book. It was 14 chapters. Took me about 6-7 hours to read it. Um, like I said, 14 chapters, about half hour per chapter. There's a two or three chapters are kind of long, maybe, but nothing you can't deal with. Really easy read. Very good read. Once you get like past the first four chapters, he talks about his childhood, which is kind of messed up. But I won't really get into that. Chapter 5 is when he gets into the music stuff, when he gets into starting a band and stuff like that. Talks about recording the first two albums. So I just touch on things from the book that kind of surprised me about the band. Like I said, been a Priest fan, huge my whole life. So the first thing was the first drummer was actually a black guy, which surprised me. I never knew that. Um, Keep in mind, it's like 1971, 72. Black guy playing in a hard rock band was kind of unheard of. But I guess you could. So I guess you could argue Jimi Hendrix did it. Jimi Hendrix was a singer with two white guys. And keep in mind, K.K. Downey was a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. He saw him multiple times. He talks about in the book. I actually met him once, which I thought was kind of cool. So maybe it had something to do with it. Anyway, so he talks about the first two albums, which if you haven't heard, sounds nothing like Priest. Just the way it was produced, the way it sounds real empty. And he does talk about that in the book. It doesn't sound anything like they pictured it would or envisioned. And then he talks about Sad Wings of Destiny, Stained Class, Sin After Sin. There's another one I'm forgetting, but it kind of talks about how the band is just trying to find its sound up through the early 70s, through the mid 70s, late 70s, until British Steel comes around. To me, that's when the band really kind of hit its stride with the heavy metal. And that's when the leather, the chains image started coming out. And Rob started wearing the leather hat and all that stuff. So that's really, like I said, where they came to their own. And British Steel was huge, man. That was a really big CD for them, or album. And he talks about the book. So up and coming band to open up for him was Iron Maiden, and come to find out they couldn't stand Iron Maiden. They did not like each other either at all on tour. He said they were real arrogant. They acted like they were the headliners when in fact they weren't. And they would go on a later tour with Iron Maiden again, and I think Scream of Vengeance tour, which KK did not want. He did not want to tour with them again, but he lost the fight, and that's when they had Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden, and he said that was a clusterfuck too. He talked about that, but so British Steel, I always thought was a great album, but even back then, I remember rushing out and buying Point of Entry after British Steel, and I remember thinking, man, what the fuck happened? Because British Point of Entry is so much different than British Steel. I could I could not figure out what happened, man. Just I just remember thinking, wow, they had a good run. They were dead after. I always thought they were dead after Point of Entry. And so KK talks in the book that after British Steel, they sent the band to Ibiza, Spain, which if you don't know what that is, it's just like a huge island in the Mediterranean, just known for partying and uh, just partying and fucking and sex and orgies and all that shit. So he said that's really not the place to go for a heavy metal band to record an album, and he said that's pretty much why Point of Entry turned out the way it did. Just he talks about they would just go record a song, kind of half-ass it, then boom, back down to the bar on the beach with the naked chicks and getting fucked up. So he kind of said that's really what happened with Point of Entry. They kind of went through the motions, and there's one or two good songs. I always thought Desert Plains is a good song. Head Out to the Highway is okay at best. The rest is pretty forgettable. Um, and then he talks about we all know what happened after that was he talks about he never really where He says, I was never really aware of what fans and critics thought of Point of Entry at the time. I was never one to sit around and read album reviews and blah, 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 which I guess if he did, he would have known that most people didn't really like the tour or the album. So Scream of Vengeance, as you know, was massive. He really, really put them on a map. I mean, in my opinion, that to me, that is just like one of the best metal albums, even to this day. I still listen to it. It's still in my car now. I still listen to it. So he talked about recording that. He said everything just kind of clicked on the album when they were recording it. So there's a part in here that I want to read that I thought was friggin' hilarious when I read it. I was actually at work when I read it. I started laughing. Everybody, what are you laughing at? I was like, nothing. But so after uh, Scream for Vengeance, they put out Turbo, which I thought was okay. I mean, KK talks about how Glenamore sent these MIDI electronic guitar parts and pieces, and they're kind of experimenting with. He said it was the '80s, video games and all the electronic shit was coming in, and they thought it'd be kind of cool to mess with that stuff. Which Turbo I thought was, I mean, I kind of liked it. It's better than Point of Entry in my opinion. But he was saying they got a lot of backlash from it. But there's a part in here where he talks about on Turbo Lover. So he says Sony approached them and wanted to use that song in the soundtrack for a movie called Top Gun. If any of you know, Top Gun is like one of the biggest movies of the '80s, like one of the biggest soundtracks ever. And where's the quote he says here? Yeah, he says, "I don't know. Someone who shall remain nameless says that sounds like a potential flop to me, man." Talking about the movie, right? Top Gun. So I just think this is hilarious, man. They had a chance to put one of their songs on the biggest soundtracks ever, and somebody, man, goes, "I don't know, man. That sounds like a flop to me." So they passed on it, man. They passed on putting Turbo on one of the biggest '80s movies ever made, even with the biggest soundtracks to this day. I thought that was freaking hilarious. But anyway, he goes on about it, but later on they did put one of their songs on a movie called Johnny Be Good, which is uh what was that, late 89, 90, which the movie was a huge flop. I mean, so they did end up putting one of the songs on the soundtrack later on, but it turned out to be a shit movie. So anyway, I thought that was hilarious. Like I said, he goes on and talks about how Glenn was just taking more and more of the guitar role from him, which he didn't really like. And yeah, you know, he said that was really what kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was the fact he kept losing more and more of the role in the band as far as the lead guitarist. Um, he talks about the problems Rob had midway around, I think, or after Defenders of the Faith, um, or before. So Rob, however, does have his own autobiography out there, which I do want to read. He doesn't really go into anybody's other really personal life. So, I mean, he talks about all the groupies. Sounds like he had a lot of fun in the '80s, put it that way. But at the very end of the book, he does talk about how, which I didn't realize, but he said overall Priest really didn't sell that many albums. They weren't that successful as like Iron Maiden or Scorpions or Def Leppard, which I didn't know that. I always thought they were, album sales, they were kind of, comparative, but apparently they weren't. So, and he says he doesn't really understand why they weren't as big as some of those other bands sales wise. He says it's just because of the management, mismanagement of the band. Early on, they didn't really know what to do with the band, whether hard rock or heavy metal. Um, should they be, prog rock or whatever? So they were, it was kind of weird. The '80s were weird for the band. As you know, they reformed once KK retired. They got Richie Faulkner, and he put out Firepower, which is my opinion. That's a damn good CD. Came out in 2018, I think. Damn good. I was surprised how good it was. But he just talks about how the other band is, they're all getting old, having real health problems. Glenn Tipton has, I think, Parkinson's right now. Um, Scott Travis, the drummer, I actually met him decades ago in Orlando at a drum clinic. It was kind of dick at the time, but looking back on it, he had to sit there for like 8 hours and answer, I guess, stupid questions from fans and shit. So I guess I would kind of get, I guess I would have been kind of irritable to myself. So yeah, that's it, guys. I just wanted to, like I said, do a quick review of the book, great read. Had a lot of fun reading it. If you're a Priest fan, you definitely want to read it because it will fill in a lot of the blanks for the band in case you're always curious as to why they did this with this album and why didn't they go in this direction, so on and so forth. So definitely read it. Like I said, welcome to my channel. I'll be bringing some other music related stuff up, and I'll talk to you later.